Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany Chu. I am a PhD student in Rutgers Business School and my major is Accounting Information Systems. In today's lecture, I'm going to introduce the process mining versus data mining. Here is the outline of my lecture. I will first introduce the process mining and data mining mechanisms, and then I will discuss several related empirical research which the authors apply the process mining and data mining techniques in auditing analytical procedures. And then I will show you how to analyze the data using the two techniques. Finally, in the last section, I will go through the main points I introduced in these lectures and then provide the conclusions. So what is process mining of event logs? In order to understand the process mining techniques, we need to first understand what is event logs. According to Federation of American Scientists, event log is defined as a chronological record of computer system activities which save in a file in the system, and the file can be reviewed by the system managers to identify users' action on the system or process on the system. So the process mining techniques is to use event logs to analyze the business processes, and the business processes defined here is the business activities that can be used to achieve the business objectives. In order to analyze the data using the process mining techniques, there are 4 characteristics to be extracted from each event. So the first one is the activity, the second one is process instance, the third one is originator, and the fourth one is the timestamp. So for example, if an employee signed an invoice on November 7th in 2006, then the employee is the action owner who is responsible for the event. Then his sign will be the activity during the event. The invoice that he signed is the process instance of the event. And November 7th in 2006 is the date and time of the event, so it's the timestamp of the event. So several literatures has already applied process mining techniques to analyze the auditing analytical procedures, which we will introduce these literatures, this empirical use later on when we go to the related research part. So here, to summarize what they apply in using the process mining techniques to analyze the data, there are 5 different types of analysis must be performed in process mining to analyze the information in the event logs. The first one is the process discovery, which examines the business process to see if there are any anomalies. And then the conformance check is to conduct a conformance to see if certain process actually meet the expectations and standards. The performance analysis is to measure the performance of the business process, such as the KPIs. And social network analysis is to analyze the information in the event logs to identify who is the action owner of the events and to see if there exists any collusive fraud or anomalous relationships. Finally, the decision mining and verification focus on the decision process of the overall model. After introducing the process mining techniques, now I want to briefly introduce the data mining techniques. Since you might already learn the data mining techniques from the previous lecture in this course, so here I just want to give a basic idea of data mining techniques and focus on some of the techniques that has widely been used to analyze the data. Especially I would introduce the clustering, since this technique is most similar to the process mining techniques. So data mining is the process of discovering patterns in the data. And the purpose of data mining technique is to extract information from the data set and then transform this information that has been extracted into an understandable structure so that it could be used for future analysis. And there are several different mechanisms in the data mining, including the classification, clustering, association rule, anomaly detection, and regression. So classification and cluster analysis are 2 of the data mining techniques that have been widely used in the prior literatures to analyze different kinds of fraud detections. So classification is to generalize known structure and apply to the new data. So it requires the training and testing sets. The training and testing sets is actually divided from the whole data set. So if we have a whole data set, then we can divide them randomly to a training and testing set. So for example, if we have 90% of the data randomly divided as a training set, the other 10% to be testing set, then we use a training set to analyze, like find out the certain patterns and characteristics in this training set, and then we apply this training set to the testing set to see the correctness of the prediction of this training set on the testing set. So if the training set can actually predict a certain level, like 80% of the real cases, can classify the instances into the right category in around 80%, then we can use this training set to test our new data. And then the clustering analysis is different from the classification in that it does not need the training set. So it actually just groups the similar instances together. So it can be applied when there's no class to be predicted, so it does not need a training set. It just simply find out the certain pattern in different instances and then group the similar instances into the same group. So each cluster within the cluster will have a lot of high similarities, but between cluster will be a huge difference. So we can choose to analyze the cluster that you think it's, for example, it has potential fraud, and you can analyze the cluster, like the instant inside that cluster will be the one has similar patterns, so you can analyze it. So here in the bottom, this table shows the difference between data mining and process mining. Process mining needs the event logs, so the firms, if they want to apply the process mining techniques, then they should have the system like ERP system, which can store the event logs in their system, so we can extract information from it and to analyze the data. And it can process every single events. And then for the data mining, so the most similar data mining techniques with the process mining technique is the cluster analysis, since it's also like to group the similar patterns together, and then you can analyze the group. And later on we will discuss that in the process mining techniques we also have like a pattern analysis, like after we extract the information from each event, we will have the pattern analysis to group the similar patterns together and to analyze, and then we can do the further analysis. And the similarity of the data mining and process mining technique is that they can analyze the full sample. So traditional audit, they usually do like the sample selection, so you only analyze selected sample from the overall population. But with the usage of data mining and process mining techniques, you can actually analyze the full sample, since these techniques provide the convenience for you to analyze every single data. So after introducing the data mining and process mining techniques, now I want to talk about what the related research which apply the process mining and data mining techniques in auditing. So the first perspective is regarding the application of process mining in audit. It's important to know that process mining can process all available data, so it's different from a traditional analytical procedure that rely only on a small sample of the overall population. So as an example, in 2006, Young and Horn applied process mining in a real-life data set from an NHI program in Taiwan to detect the potential fraud in healthcare services, and proposed a detection model used of frequent patterns. The result shows that the model that they proposed, it can actually identify some fraudulent cases which traditional methods cannot identify. And then in 2009, James et al. Proposed a framework for reducing internal fraud risk. using their process mining methods. And in their method, they use process mining to detect potential internal fraud risk through the comparison of the current and expected business processes. In 2013, Dataset discovered that the process mining can add value to audit as it enhances the effectiveness of the fraud prevention, especially when auditees are made aware of the event logs, which means that if the auditees they know that there's an event logs tracking every single event that they do in the system, they will be less likely to conduct something that is not right. And then in 2014, Dataset applied process mining in real-life data sets, and they found out that process mining techniques can detect anomalous transactions which traditional auditing analytical procedures cannot discover. So in this case, they actually apply the data. The data is from the bank, and the data has already been audited by the auditors, and they use the process mining techniques to analyze the data again, and they found out some potential fraudulent cases, so they asked the auditors to analyze the data again after they did the auditing once. And they based on the process mining techniques found out those cases. The auditors actually find out that some of the cases that they re-examine is actually potential fraud cases. And the second perspective is the application of cluster analysis in auditing. So a lot of prior literature has suggested that data mining techniques like the clustering and classification is widely used to enhance the effectiveness of the fraud detection. Specifically, in 2010, Fipron Street applied cluster analysis to prove the transactions of the transitory accounts. The result shows that cluster analysis is useful for detecting anomalous transactions in audit. And in 2011, Fipron Street and Varsahali examined life insurance plans using clustering, and they proposed that cluster analysis is a promising technique that can be used in the concept of continuous system monitoring and assurance. So now that we know a lot of prior literature, they already apply process mining and data mining techniques in auditing analytical procedures and some fraud detections. So here I want to show you how to analyze the data using these two techniques. So data that I apply to show you the analysis is a real-life event log data from Volvo IT Belgium. And these data sets deal with the problem management in the Volvo IT firm. So the firm requires that all major incidents should be followed by a problem management. And major incidents can be included that the incidents that disrupt plant productions, affect key business processes and stakeholders, and impact the critical systems. And the action owners, the firms require them to be responsible for identify and remove the cause of the recurring incidents. So here is the detail of the data set. We have 819 process instances, which is the cases. And inside these cases, we have 2,351 events, 3 status, 5 sub-status, and 240 action owners. The status and sub-status are combined into 5 classes. They are the accepted in progress, accepted assigned, accepted wait, queue waiting assignment, and completed closed. So here, this is the overview of the data set that we use one of the process mining techniques called a ProM. You can see on the left-hand side of the screenshot shows the details of the data set. So that's the detail that we just discussed. And then on the middle, there is 2 yellow circles. It shows that in the overall data sets that we have 819 cases, but there might be a lot of events in one cases. So in this data set, the maximum can be 22 events in one case. The minimum is 1 event in one case. Here, this table shows the activity classifier, which shows the absolute and relative occurrence of each class in all events. So as we mentioned earlier, the class is the status and a substatus. So we can see here is on the table shows the 5 different classes and the occurrence, the absolute occurrence and relative occurrence. So in this table we can see that for the first class, the accepted in progress, almost 50% of the events are in this class. So to be specific, we have 1,154 events occur in the accepted in progress class. And then this two table shows the start events and end events. The start events and the end events represent the first event and the last event in each cases. So we can see from the first table that most of the cases start with the accepted in progress events, which means that 90% of the cases, they start with the accepted in progress, and which is reasonable since every case should be start with the employees accept the case and try to progress the case. And then the second table shows the end events. We can see that almost 50% of the cases end with a completed closed class, which means that almost 50% of the cases in our data set that the problem has actually already been solved, so the case is closed. And then this table shows the resource classifier, which means from the left-hand side shows the action owners. So there are overall 240 action owners, and the absolute and relative occurrence of each events for each action owners. So like for the first and second row, E1, EN, they both have 134 events on their hands they need to deal with. And here is also an overview of the data set. So you can see that the left-hand side shows the instances, which is the case numbers, and the right-hand side shows the each events. So in this software, you can actually click on each cases to see the detailed events in each cases. And this example is the maximum events in our data set. So it has 23 events, and you can see the details shows the originator, the action owners, the timestamp, and also the activity. And this is an example of we analyze the data and use the fuzzy miner. Fuzzy miner is one of the most widely used process mining techniques that can be used to understand the overall process of the data set. So we can see in this graph that most of the cases, they start with accepted in progress, as we discussed earlier, and then they end with the completed close. And the arrows here shows the processes. So the red arrow is occurs most often, followed by the blue one, and then the green one. And then here is that after we understand the data set, we know how many events the action owners have and how many classes we have, how many cases we have, then we can start to analyze the data using the frequent patterns. So here in this screenshot, we see that we have overall 182 variants. Now we can see the left-hand side shows the variants. So the first variant has 176 cases, which means that there are 176 cases they have the exactly same patterns. So this is the part that is similar to the cluster analysis. Like cluster analysis will group the data together. So we have overall 182 variants, and then we can click on the middle column to know the detail of each variant. And so we can, like, if we want to know where, like, if there's any potential fraud cases or fraud variants, then we can start to analyze from here. And then this can be opened in the spreadsheet so we can know the details more clearly. The left-hand side is the variants, the cases, the events, and different steps that went through from each variance. And I also put the same data set into the cluster analysis and using the methods called k-means and cluster analysis. So we can see this one, I put the data into Weka. Weka is one of the popular data mining techniques. You can see from the top of the screenshot that actually they can choose different techniques like classification, clustering, and associations. And in this case, in the top red circle, I choose the clustering, and then choose the simple k-mean, and I choose 5 groups. So we can see on the bottom part of the screenshot shows the 5 different clusters, and in the middle part shows the detailed information of each cluster. This can also be opened in the spreadsheet, and we can see that on your right hand side there's different clusters. On your left hand side shows the case ID, so we can try to analyze like how they group the different cases into the same cluster. So here is the conclusion part. Overall, this lecture discussing the process mining and data mining techniques. So we know that process mining techniques need to utilize event log because it has to extract the information from the event log and to analyze the frequent patterns to see if there's anomalous transactions in the frequent patterns. And for the data mining techniques, it does not need event logs, and the most widely used methods will be classification and clustering. And then the similarity between process mining and data mining is that they can both analyze the big data, which means that they can analyze a large data set to detect anomalous transactions. But they might also be somewhat different in the way they analyze or the mechanisms they use for these two techniques. Thank you for joining today's class. I hope you have learned something from today's lecture, and I wish you have a great time for the rest of the semester in this course. Thank you.